What is a republic and what is a democracy? And what is the difference? A republic versus a democracy. What's the difference? A lot of people don't know that there is a difference. Some people think a republic and democracy are the exact same thing. They're not. There is a world of difference. So what is the difference between a republic and a democracy? Well, in a republic, there is a rule of law. That is to say, in a republic, laws govern. There is a law that says you can do this and you can't do that. If you break that law, then there is a law that says for breaking this law, you must pay this fine, or you must have this happen to you. There are some laws that it's a penalty of death. So there are laws that govern all aspects of a person's life. And under a republic, there is actually a lot of freedom. In the Bible, there's the law of God, the 10 Commandments everyone knows about. And there are some other laws that had to take place, but those laws, they were relatively a lot of freedom under the laws of the Old Testament. So you've got a republic, it's a rule of law, it's when laws govern. What is a democracy? Well, democracy is a lot different because in a democracy, people determine the law. And people vote to change the law, and usually it's based upon their opinions or their emotions. And really, when you get down to it, what democracy is mob rule. All people have to do is have their feelings swayed a certain way in order to vote a certain way. And every time that happens, something bad always happens to someone else. Because in a democracy, one group gets power and doesn't like the other group. So quite often in democracy, this group votes to kill that group. And democracies lead to genocide. Democracies lead to murder, to death, to class warfare, to different groups. Years ago, Plato, in about 300 years before the Lord Jesus Christ, 427 to 347 BC, it says in this book, Plato wrote a book called Plato's Republic. If you've never read this book, you need to read it. Because Plato talks about the system of government, and it's called Plato's Republic. And he talks about how great the republic is, but then he talks about how a republic usually degenerates into a democracy. And Plato says that as soon as it becomes a democracy, it is one step away from, this is the word he used, tyranny. Because in a democracy, people are always voting and always scared and always fearful and say, oh, we got to vote for this. And they tell us that this is going to happen, so we've got to allow special rights for this group, and we've got to allow special, and it's mob rule, and one person emerges as the head of the mob that says, follow me and do what I tell you to do. In Plato's Republic, Plato says that this has been the history of the world over and over. A form of government starts as a republic. The republic degenerates into a democracy in which certain people take over and rule the mob. And from that ruling mob emerges a tyrant who takes over. And according to Plato in his Republic, usually he becomes so evil and so wicked and so intolerant that the people are just slaughtered and killed and can't take him. And a civil war emerges and the people fight against the tyrant. And then they start a new form of government, which is always a republic. And that cycle happens over and over and over and over again throughout history. Sadly, we're starting to see that in our country today. America was founded as a republic. The Republic of the United States of America, founded on the Constitution, the rule of law. Well, now we've seen people are turning against the Constitution, trying to pass laws based upon what people think. Patriot Act, different kind of laws that say, oh, the Constitution's great and all, but there's just certain cases in which we can go against the Constitution, and it's turned into democracy, and look what it is. It's one step away from an outright tyranny, in which a tyrant will stand up and take over. Once again, we've seen this over and over and over. Ancient Greece, they started as a republic, turned into a democracy, then a tyrant took over. Look at ancient Rome. If you've never seen the movie Gladiator, it's an amazing movie, wonderful movie, because it talks about how the leader, the Caesar, the person in charge of Rome, was saying, look, I want to take it back to its former glory. I want Rome to go back to a republic. And his son murdered him because he didn't want a republic. He wanted a democracy. And the son became a tyrant. And so we see this cycle over and over and over. So there is a difference between a republic and a democracy. And it's a big difference. One of the greatest books that can tell you the difference about it is this book by Ann Coulter called Demonic. Amazing book. I enjoyed reading this. Ann Coulter wrote this book and shows how democracy is really mob rule. Because when you're in charge and you're the head of the government and you get away from laws governing, you can sway public opinion so that people will vote a certain way, not knowing that what they're voting for will end up biting them in the butt in the end.
Notice Biden has the blue, which blue, when you deal with color psychology, deals with trust. Okay? And people have trusted him. And look what it's ended in already. Now, the elites control both spectrums. But what they've done is they've gotten people to fight against their own freedoms by what? Accepting these false agendas that really is their demise. All of this fear, all of this, all of that, we need to do this, we need to do that. And now people are fighting for the agenda to be set, which really they don't understand. They're fighting against their own freedoms and freedom of speech. And this is how Revelation breaks it down. Okay? That's why I believe the chip and everything that we're seeing will be issued forth from a Democrat rule. This could very well be the end. Although the elite are the ones who control it, they're doing it through the guise of democracy. Okay? Now, when you go to democracy, it actually goes back to the Greeks. All right? Rome as well. All right? But it actually goes back to the Greeks. Okay? Republic and Democrat. Okay? Greece and Rome were started as republics, but eventually the Democrat Party got up in there, all right? And it has always led, as this guy is saying, to tyranny. You people have been given these agendas that you really thought were real, but the whole time it was set up to take away your rights. Let's keep listening.
It will be empowering a tyrant to take over. So, republic or democracy? What do we live in? You decide. But one thing's for certain. I've heard many presidents in the last however long I've lived, about 40 years, say, oh, America's a great democracy. That's not what it was founded. It was founded as a republic. So if America today is a democracy, we're only one step away from an absolute tyrannical ruler taking over. We need to get back to the republic, to the former glory, to where there's a rule of law, a standard in which laws go.
It's over, bro. It's over. Isaiah, the 19th chapter. In the 4th verse, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord, all right, Yahweh, the Lord of armies. This tyrannical rule that you're seeing and witnessing is a result of a democracy where the rules are passed according to what the people want. Right? But how do they figure out what the people want? They give you false propaganda, lies, and they scare the shit out of you into crying for their solution. All right? So why in the hell, although this whole system is wicked, why in the hell is Jake all up in the Democratic Party's ass when they have historically had a foot in your ass and ruined every goddamn thing and put all sorts of nastiness and spread it all throughout the earth, as all Edomites do. But we're just dealing with these two horns like a lamb, because none of them mean you any well. But historically, niggas have been, all of the tribes have been better off, under a republic. Anyway, let me see something here. See if we can look up this other video I was checking out. You look up these little videos. Let's see here. It was one. Let's see here. See, sometimes you go to these little ones for kids and they'll explain some things too, but, it was something I was looking at yesterday. What's this philosopher's name? Anyway, maybe I'll just do another video on it. All right, the spirit don't want me to bring it out. But overall, through, all the way through. Shalom. Micah 4:1. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain, which is the government of the house of Yahweh, shall be established in top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow to it. Many nations shall come and say, Come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth of Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Okay? So when the kingdom of heaven is established, all right, it will be based upon the law, statutes, and commandments being taught to the heathen. As we know, under the new covenant, we won't have to teach any of our own people. Now, I wanted to go to this video so we can have democracy further explained, so you can clearly see why we need the kingdom of heaven to be established. Because democracy has tricked our people into fighting for their own enslavement. People, period. All right. But our interest is the Israelites. Now, in the kingdom of heaven, you heathen will be taught how to live according to the law, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father. All right. So let's go ahead and check this out. Because whether republic, all right, or democracy, it all ends in wickedness being spread, all right, evil, all right, tyranny, okay, and the people lose out, all right? But here in Babylon the Great, our people have a love affair with the democracy, all right? So I just wanted to go into this so that when we're explaining these things on the highways and the byways, because this ties directly to Revelation, the 13th chapter. See? The beast from the earth, all right? Revelation 13:11, I beheld another beast, which this is Babylon the Great. And what is this? A revival of the ancient Greco-Roman Empire. Now, we focus on Rome because Rome was where they came to an even more heightened power. They had more landmass. Okay, they had more vassals, okay, but they ruled with that Senate, that same form of government that the Greeks ruled with, okay? Now, it says, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. So these two horns are two spectrums of rule and government that the people flow to, when really, all right, their interest will eventually be undermined. But they're tricked into having this false sense of freedom. All right. And these two horns come as a lamb. Right. Now, when you look up this word horn, all right, it's a valiant savior. So these two opposing forces come telling you you should pick us because of this. All right. Or you should pick us because of this. But the end result, okay, as you really look at them as lambs or someone who's there to really help you, the end result is that your rights are taken away, you're undermined, and eventually, as he's doing now, he will start to speak as a dragon. Now, we know dragon goes back to Draco, which is draconian law, which, as we're going to show you, draconian law, right, as we always show you, okay, Draco was a lawgiver, okay? As we always show you this, he was known for his harsh legal code, punished both trivial and serious matters with a very harsh, all right, way of governing, okay? And when you do the research, okay, the Democratic Party, okay, came out of Athens, Greece. Okay, and we're going to show you that. Dracon, an Athenian lawgiver, all right, whose harsh legal code punished both trivial and serious crimes in Athens with death, all right? Hence, the continued use of the word draconian, all right, to describe repressive legal measures. You can go into the history, okay? And yeah, and you're witnessing draconian measures being put on the people right now via what? A democracy, okay? And people are actually crying for these harsh measures to be implemented, okay? Now, let's get rid of that. So this is where we are, okay? And as you read down in this very chapter, in Revelation, the 13th chapter, he's exercising the power of the first beast, all right, which is ultimately the Greco-Roman Empire. Okay, the latter is the more powerful, the Roman, okay, whose deadly wound was healed. Now, the beast system, as we know, started with the leopard. Okay, the leopard, when you go into Daniel the 7th chapter, is directly tied to the Greeks, Alexander. Okay. Now, before we continue in that, let's listen to a few of these videos, because this is where we are, and this is what the Bible describes. All right. You know, I believe this is the end. Okay, the last form of this, you know, spectrum of Democrat and Republican that we'll see in Babylon will be through a democracy, which will lead to an all-out tyrant or a tyrannical government being set up.
Comes from the Greek words of demos, which means people. The word democracy comes from the Greek words of demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power or rule. So democracy basically means the rule of the people. Democracy first started as a direct democracy in Greek cities, notably ancient Athens.
See that? Notably ancient Athens, which is where Draco, the Athenian lawgiver, came. So they have two horns like a lamb. They trick you with these two spectrums, but then eventually they speak as a dragon. And we're living in a time where they've used these two opposing sides to get the people pitted one against the other. All right. But ultimately, not one of them knows what they're fighting for, especially the Democrats. At least the Republicans have some sense of what they're fighting for. Whereas people who are screaming for Democrats, they're being tricked into what they're fighting for via propaganda, scare tactics, the news, okay, and other forms of witchcraft. Okay, now in the Republic, you have ultimately the ruler dictates the laws and all of this, but what laws are they dictating? Okay, still wicked and corrupt. Under a democracy, the people dictate what laws are passed, all right? But you're tricked into fighting for these laws and agendas. Case in point, the LGBT, XYZ, all right, AU, M, Z, what's next? They go create another letter for these people, okay? With all of the hell that's going on in the earth, they're at the forefront, okay, of what needs to be fixed, who needs to get rights. But it's all off of the back of black people getting rights, civil rights. That's where they give you BLM, funded to play with people's minds, right? But what really comes from it? The people who are supposed to be about are undermined it, okay, while all of these perversions are forwarded.
The word democracy comes from the Greek words of demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power or rule. So democracy basically means the rule of the people. Democracy first started as a direct democracy in Greek cities, notably ancient Athens, where people came together to speak about their concerns and opinions in front of rulers of the city-state, and directly voted on new rules and laws. Here is considered as the birthplace of democracy. For the very first time, decisions were made by the people instead of rulers. But sadly, the ancient Greeks did not see all people equally.
Now, how did these people in these times, how did these people get what they're fighting for? All right. Well, false people are set up to lead particular coups and groups and ideologies and mindsets. They follow after them. And then laws are passed based on what these people want. All right. But in this time, you have the internet, you have all of these people all over the place with all these different ideologies, okay, which the powers that be fund the people who are setting up these ideologies and mindsets one against the other. This is the devil, man.
Slaves, women, children, and the people who did not have a land weren't allowed to vote. This is what we call a flawed democracy today. After the Greeks lost their power and influence in the first...
And they fixed that through what? Civil rights, women's rights, and all of these other rights, which presented more problems than it did solutions in the grand scheme of things, all right? I'm not fit to get into should women vote and all of this crap. Just showing you going into the process. And we'll also get the book of Daniel 11 as well.
First century AD, their early forms of democracy were also fading away until the Magna Carta was signed in 1215, which prevented the King of England to do whatever he wanted and said that even the king had to follow the country's rules and laws, which were written in the Constitution. Today,
and as you look, the Constitution is being undermined by this democracy, which is why you have these lower level Edomites pissed the hell off. Okay? George Washington himself spoke against this form of government being set up in Babylon the Great. That's why you see a lot of memes going around. You see a lot of people saying this is not what our precious America was founded upon.
today, most democracies are indirect or representative, which means that you can't vote for a new law yourself, but you can vote for people who then become lawmakers and present your interests.
See that? And these people are set up by the powers that be, and they're trained in witchcraft and how to manipulate minds. It's called enchantments. So your vote is not really what counts. It's stirring your mind towards particular agendas. There's no way to win following this devil, man. I'm telling you.
But democracy isn't just about voting. It's about everything to protect the best interests of the people, no matter what is their race,
See?
gender, political opinion, or religion.
See, whoa. Say that again.
But you can vote for people who then become lawmakers and present your interests. But democracy isn't just about voting. It's about everything to protect the best interests of the people, no matter what is their race, gender, political opinion, or religion.
Race, gender, political opinion, and that's how wine forwards us of all of this confusion. Sex, sexual preference, all of that is added to it as well.
These interests can be human rights, quality of life, infrastructure, and many more. Modern democracies divide power into three different branches: the legislative, the people who make the law; the executive, the people who make sure that you obey the law; and the judiciary, who judge you if you commit a crime. These three are independent and work following the process, checks and balances, which means all the work must be clear and fair. And very important, the people who have power also must follow the law and not exceed their authority.
Now, is that happening now? This dude, Biden, just passed a mandate that excluded Congress, that excluded U.S. postal workers, that excluded other people, but federal workers are mandated. So he's abusing his authority. That's why historically, you go into the history, democracies have led to tyrannical governments where the people lose, where the people start off with this false sense of freedom and choice, okay, where everybody is able to get their rights, addressed, their concerns addressed. But when you look at it and you figure it out, the concerns you have were set up by some false nigga who they set up to go out and create some agenda that wasn't even really needed. And there's more to it. All right. Now, let's get this in the book of Daniel, the 11th chapter. Okay, because remember, Antiochus came speaking peaceable unto the people before the Hellenization process. Okay. And he did this to all nations that were round about. All right. The Bible just focuses on what he did to the Jews, the Israelites. Daniel 8:25, and through his policy, okay, his policies that at some point sound good to the people, he shall cause craft, deceit to prosper in his hand. Then what does it lead to? Him becoming a tyrant. He shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace, because of the hell he created, then he presents to you peace. He destroys many. And he shall stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now, when you go into the Maccabees, we go into the Maccabees really quick, and we'll go, let's see here, first Mac. These people are the complete devil, man, and they're high-level witches. Remember, the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. And this ain't talking about actual serpents. Okay, remember when we deal with the serpent. Okay, when we deal with serpent, we must understand. See, the true narrative of the Bible answers all questions, puts everything to rest. All right, now the serpent, okay, I just seen a YouTube commercial where this atheist is, well, why would the punishment of a serpent be to crawl on its belly when serpents already crawl on their belly? See, that doesn't mean that. It's not talking about a literal serpent. But Esau, the serpent, the spirit of the serpent, they will be the lowest nation of the low. But anyway, this word serpent, okay, now you go to the root word, it's nachash. It just says serpent, image of serpent, fleeing serpent. But when you go to the root word, Okay, when you go to the root word, because root words are important, right? Like, what is our root as Israelites? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, which takes us back to Adam. All right, through Noah, Shem, and so forth. But anyway, Nachash means what? To practice divination. Okay, and then inauguration in Arger is dealing with witchcraft. When you have an inauguration, you're putting a witch in front of you to practice divination, divine, observe signs, learn by experience, diligently observe. And they've observed the minds of the people, so they trick you by your lust, all right, and by understanding how minds work and what to do. And the goal is what? Total control over your mind, spirit, your soul, everything. Practice fortune telling, practice divination, man. Basically a witch. Okay, he's very, very crafty in how he operates. So when you read Maccabees, okay, he entered into the sanctuary proudly. Speaking of Antiochus, okay, proud, man. Okay, he came after the temple, and he's going to try to do it in this time, man. Okay, verse 29, and after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute, because Hellenization, it was a gradual process. All right, but he went to the temple, took stuff out of it, being proud. Okay, 2 years later, he sent chief collectors, all right, the tax collectors, all right, what's the name of that thing? The census. Okay, the Romans followed the same thing, into the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. When they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And this is where we are now, all right? And what is it all about? What does he want? Moreover, verse 41, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his law. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Okay. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion. And this is what's being presented to you by this tyrannical democracy, a new religion. They're bringing in a new W-O, right? You can't tell me it's not a religion. And sacrificing to idols and profane the Sabbath, all right? Now, this is where we are. And Antiochus could very well be Joe Biden, which it came out as family-owned slaves. We didn't even need to know that. All of the people that are placed in positions of power and authority within this government, all right, either they're, if it's an Israelite, because you do have Jake in particular positions, right? But they're boule. They have some sort of Greco-Roman oath. Why is it always when you deal with these fraternities and things like that? All right, Jake, but a lot of people don't know, well, you make oaths to other gods doing that. Now, there's a lower level to it. But amongst these universities, particular Jakes and people are picked out for the purpose of their agenda. As you go higher up in that, you got the niggas that just hop around parties and sip wine and twist canes and, throw up the Omega hooks. And then you got actual Jakes who were picked out of these Greek fraternities, okay, for the purpose of being gatekeepers of their satanic Baphomet Boule order. And that happened here as well. Okay, when you read the book of Maccabees, all right, you had particular men out of Israel who persuaded many, saying, let us make a covenant with the heathen. And that's what your leaders are set up for today. All right, but then amongst the Edomites, all of these people who are placed in positions of power, they're descendants of the keepers of the order. The niggas are just protectors because they have to have an Israelite influence. Okay? But anyway, I don't even know where I'm at. Let's finish this off and then I'm going to get another little video and then I'm done.
In addition, a democratic government must work in a way that reflects the wish, feeling, desire, and values of the society that it governs.
And the society that it governs is absolutely wicked. Okay? And the people who have true, wishes, they're undermined. They're called crazy because they're not fighting for these agendas that these people are for. And we see all sorts of nasty, crazy agendas, man. Democrats are the worst of the worst. All of them are the worst, but to follow a Democrat, a democracy is a high-level witchcraft, man.
This is also known as the general will, which is a concept developed by the famous Swiss philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. One of the problems of democratic voting is that the biggest groups of people always have the most power. And that's why a good democracy also has laws to...
My pussy, my choice. I can do this, I can do that. LGE3. Nigga, I'm nasty. Just everywhere you look, stupid ass agendas where the majority of stupid people have the voice. And society is then dictated and influenced by these people, which is the plan of the elites anyway, because this is Sodom and Egypt. Confusion.
To protect the rights of its smaller and weaker groups. A democracy where the majority chooses to separate, expel, or injure its minority is not a functioning democracy.
Now they're getting ready to have this thing that if you're not juiced, you're going to be cut off from society. But anyway, let's see if it's a little bit more.
So, what do you think now about democracy? Winston Churchill once said, "Democracy is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time." Do you agree?
When you read the comments, people are cursing it out. Okay? Maybe that's another video. There was another video where people were cursing out democracy. Maybe further down, but let's check this one out too.
We continue our 360 perspective coverage of the Electoral College and National Popular Vote Bill that will soon be headed to Governor Polis's desk. We've gone over the
As a matter of fact, you can look that up on your own. I wanted to play this one. Why Socrates hated democracy. And Socrates was a Jake. Okay?
We're used to thinking very highly of democracy, and by extension, of ancient Athens, the civilization that gave rise to it. The Parthenon...
Athens. That's where draconian laws come from, man. Now you see why. Because of this democracy.
Has become almost a byword for democratic values, which is why so many leaders of democracies like to be photographed there.
Who's there? Obama. Now, under him, all sorts of anti-Messiah. Okay, you couldn't get a damn tax return no more. They start spying in on everything. Okay? Patriot Act was renewed under who? This guy. But because he had what looks to be dark skin or whatever, because he's a Hamite, we believe, but he could even be an Edomite. Right? So I guess because Obama has dark skin, he's an Israelite, right?
It's therefore very striking to discover that one of ancient Greece's greatest achievements, philosophy, was highly suspicious of its other achievement, democracy. The founding father of Greek philosophy, Socrates, is portrayed in the dialogues of Plato as hugely pessimistic about the whole business of democracy. In Book 6 of the Republic, Plato describes Socrates falling into conversation with a character called Adimantus and trying to get him to see the flaws of democracy by comparing a society to a ship. If you were heading out on a journey by sea, asks Socrates, who would you ideally want deciding who was in charge of the vessel? Just anyone, or people educated in the rules and demands of seafaring? The latter, of course, says Adimantus. So why then, responds Socrates, do we keep thinking that any old person should be fit to judge who should be the ruler of a country? Socrates' point is that voting in an election is a skill, not a random intuition. And like any skill, it needs to be taught systematically to people.
And the people don't know what the hell they're doing. They're just going and voting. They don't really know the policies. They don't know nothing. But then we're going to dictate what laws we pass by these empty people who dwelleth without care mentality. All for the purpose of you losing your rights and having your soul placed upon a damn chip. You people are through, man.
Letting the citizenry vote without an education is as irresponsible as putting them in charge of a trireme sailing to Samos in a storm.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. I mean, look where the world is headed under this ideology and the people having a say on what should be passed. Look at the earth. Look at what the issues that are being addressed. Are the true issues being addressed? All right, but you can check out that video on your own. I got to roll out. Shalom.